Day one officially has begun. They gabbled in. This isn't a gavel, but it's a wrench that kind of looked like a gavel. Now, guys, do you get why I wanted it? I'm Harris Faulkner, live from Cleveland, Ohio, at the Republican National Convention, and they did gavel in right in the middle of Outnumbered at noon Eastern today, and now we are fully underway on what Donald Trump is calling at the RNC convention, Making America Safe Again. That is the theme, and we'll see on the stage tonight Melania Trump. He's supposed to be in the audience watching his wife kick things off. It will be electric at the Q. So from LeBron to the Trump, it'll be very, very fun. And on this version of Fox News Digital across all platforms, including Facebook Live, Katie Pavlich is in the house. By the way, how many books have you written?
Two. Just two.
Just two?
Just two at this point.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. And I know it's going well for you. Title of your second?
Assault and Flattery, The Truth About the Left and Their War on Women, which was a take on actually the last presidential election that we had. So.
We got to get you back on Outnumbered, because I think when we started 2.5 years ago, your first book had come out, and so we haven't had you on since the second book. Wink, wink, hint, hint, we need to get you on.
I'll get you back.
So what do you think of my faux gavel?
I think this makes you look very fix-it-like.
Thank you.
If something goes wrong, get some flat tires, Harris Faulkner's got it covered. From the news to fixing stuff up.
To your car shoes. From the news to your car shoes. So Reince Priebus kicked things off, the RNC chair, and here we are. And you know, you came in from outside. Things have been fairly calm here, but we did see some protesters showing up. And so America has wondered, well, what will this venue look like, particularly after what we saw unfold in Baton Rouge, Louisiana? It is under heavy guard. I feel safe. How do you feel?
I feel relatively safe. It gets a little bit unnerving once you're outside of the security perimeter.
So how are things out there? Because I haven't been out there.
They're getting a little rowdier, let's say. I mean, things are still peaceful, so to speak. There hasn't
quite a few people shown up.
Quite a few people are there now. They've moved from the designated protesting area. Some of them are now marching through the streets and pushing on some of the barriers, which is not good. There's also a report of some protesters jumping over one of the barricades, which of course is not a good thing. But overall, I think there's something like 2,600 police officers here. I saw some National Guard here as well, which I think is very helpful, not just for the RNC,
a lot of military members
here
too.
Right. So
with Secret Service as well.
Yeah, I feel safe, and they can do a little bit of a better job of getting reporters into the Quicken Loans arena. You have to turn on all of your electronics to get in there. I understand why they got to do it, but the line to get in there is just far too long. So that's something they could be improving on.
So just to set the scene, may I give someone my gavel wrench? It's very heavy. To set the scene, we're at the, thank you, my man, at the Convention Center, which is about 10 walking blocks, so basically a mile away from the Q Arena. It's warm here in Cleveland. It's humid. We've had some storms move in and out of the area. So when you're standing in line, you just have to remember to wear comfortable shoes. I'm okay with them taking their time. I would say if you know you need to have all your devices on, turn them on. Right. So let's have a little PSA here while we're here, too.
Make sure they're charged and not dead, because they will take them away from you.
Oh, yeah. Good point. All right, so let's talk about the lineup today and what we know about it. So the speakers being confirmed, because that lineup has changed, and then the focus on this has changed because of what's happened against police officers in this country. You've got ISIS trying to recruit in the United States as well. You have a lot of things challenging public safety. Make America safe again. What does that mean to you based on the speakers tonight?
You know, look, there's a lot of angst in America about what's going on in the world. We're seeing a lot of instability, whether it's, you know, numerous terror attacks happening in Western countries, not just here, but also in Europe, of course. And then when you have 8 police officers assassinated within a week of each other, people are really starting to feel like things are kind of pulling apart and what is the next step. And I think that the Trump campaign and the RNC have done a good job politically of coming and saying, what are people afraid of? And we need to make sure that we're reassuring them that if we get into the Oval Office, we're going to make sure that they're safe, because right now they don't feel that way. And when you don't feel that way, there's certain ways that you vote. You want answers on certain things. And when you have the president saying some words that maybe not the country is not either believing or believes should have come earlier, I think people are ready for a change, and their Trump campaign is certainly capitalizing on that.
You know, one thing that I have not heard talked about, you always hear about a president's lame duckness. This is usually pretty far into being a lame duck. So I don't know why people in the nation are necessarily looking to this president to do something that he has not done his entire presidency in the last 4 months of his presidency in terms of race relations or anything else.
Right.
I mean, are we sort of waiting on the brink of something that just simply won't happen?
I'm not sure they're waiting and looking to him for any type of change or leadership at this point, but I think they are looking for him to, you know, he's obligated to make a statement when one of these horrific things happens. He is still the president, however. There are things that he is saying that maybe he should not. For example, the things that he said during the memorial service
bringing
for the
up
Dallas
Black
police
Lives Matter,
bringing that up, accusing,
that was for another day.
Right, accusing, you know, police departments around the country of having racial bias when he's at a memorial service for men who were killed because of their skin color being white. And President Obama trying again in his final hour to push for gun control, which is a bipartisan issue and something that has bipartisan opposition. So I think that he's probably saying too much, and people are looking to him to say something, but to kind of hold his tongue a little bit when it comes to pushing his agenda in the last couple months of his term.
That's a really interesting way of putting it, saying too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes to back away from the cheese tray. I mean,
right.
he is known at news conferences as a journalist. You know this is true. Boy, you might not get 4 or 5 questions in because he's going to filibuster those first 2.
Right.
And he's going to determine really how much gets covered in that news conference, irrespective of the fact that he's got a list of 1 through 15 reporters. He may not get through that list.
No, he never does. I don't think he ever has.
And so the ability to kind of go on and on and on is something that you would caution at this point. Just say what's needed and get off the stage.
Right.
And if you believe you have the bully pulpit, which I don't think anybody has argued that he does, I mean, he has not relinquished that.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a lame duck in the room, I don't think he'd put his hand in the air as
right.
the lame duck. But if you know you have the bully pulpit, why can't you save it for another day? And wouldn't that help you make your point better anyway? Because everybody's grieving.
And to give him a little bit of credit, I mean, with the Turkey coup over the weekend, he came out with a short statement and didn't go too far on that.
Okay, can I offer up an observation?
Sure.
Okay. So you and I have talked geopolitics many, many times on Outnumbered and other shows. Did he underestimate Erdogan? Did he underestimate the thirst that Erdogan has for power in his country?
I'm not so sure he necessarily underestimated it or knew what his aspirations were and ignored them. I mean, we've seen President Obama ignore leaders around the world who have a bent towards radical Islamic behavior, including Erdogan. But let's not forget what happened in Egypt after the revolution there when the Muslim Brotherhood got into power. That's when the president wanted to give them military aid, not before or afterward, when there was a more moderate regime put in place. And so it's been interesting to watch President Obama and the leaders he decides to either ignore or give, you know, kind of a heads up to and a wink. You know, Erdogan for years now has been cracking down on the press. He's been cracking down on human rights in that country. He's done very little to actually help us fight ISIS. Sure, we're using their airspace, but there were those, you know, allegations that the Turks were buying the oil from ISIS. And the real goal
here... That his son was involved in those purchases.
And
that there's a bit of an information trail there.
Right. And so, you know, I think that this has been President Obama's tolerance of not just Erdogan, but his behavior in the country of cracking down. There's been lots of warning signs leading up to this point. And I'm not so sure that I buy the line that the president didn't know a coup was coming. However, you know, things should have been done in terms of holding Turkey accountable as a NATO ally.
So what do you do now?
Beforehand?
Because he's cracking down on the people who tried to rise up. You know, it's starting to look a little bit like Iran over there now. And they're demanding that we send the self-exiled proponent, if you will, or accelerant, human accelerant of previous uprisings, who is now in Pennsylvania in this country, exiled here, self-exiled here. They want an extradition. And what I'm reading today is that there would be no stoppage of executing this man. So
well, he's
that's a complicated place for President Obama to be in, if in fact, as you said, he underestimated what the leader's aspirations were.
Well, I would hope that the administration is not considering extraditing this man, considering he is an American citizen, and the Turkish government has not provided at least any public proof that he had anything to do with the
and that's what Secretary Kerry says.
The so-called coup. And even if there was proof of that, this is America, and he's an American citizen who has rights, including free speech. And do you remember when Erdogan came a couple months ago to Washington, D.C., and his bodyguards were outside beating up protesters and journalists, and the Secret Service had to stop his bodyguards and the people outside the building and say, this is America, you can't do that here. And so,
they weren't familiar with that constitutional amendment, right?
And so to answer your question about what do we do now in terms of Turkey's behavior and Erdogan's behavior, they are they're part of NATO.
Right.
And so NATO has to get together and say, you know, what are we going to tolerate here in terms of the crackdown that you're asserting?
Right.
You know, yes, there was a coup, but that doesn't give you the right to, quote, cleanse the judiciary
they're rounding people up
of
from what I'm reading.
thousands of judges, to cleanse the military. I mean, that word cleanse, and to call them a virus, as he said, is very alarming language.
Oh, it
and
is.
It's just another huge step in his pattern of behavior of cracking down over the last couple of years.
Well, historically, it has been, when you hear the words cleansing and ridding the public sphere of any dissension, look, precursors to genocide.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to go there and call this anything that it has not become, because that's not responsible. But I'm talking historically, when we've heard those words, that's where we go.
Anytime you hear someone who is powerful and seeking more power in an undemocratic way, especially in a, quote, democratic country.
Did everybody miss it, or just President Obama?
I think, well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of journalism organizations that have been calling on, you know, the United States to further condemn Erdogan for cracking down on journalists. There's been lots of human rights organizations that have been warning about this.
But we needed their airspace to fly our people in the fight against the Islamic State savages.
So we tolerated it, even though, you know, Erdogan has not necessarily helped us so much in that fight against ISIS.
Wow.
We'll see where it goes.
Katie Pavlich, one of my friends who is the deep end of the ocean. Let me tell you. One more time, the title of your book?
Assault and Flattery.
Okay.
Available on Amazon.
On Amazon.
On Amazon.
Thank you
We'll
very much.
Soon.
I'll
Thanks,
see you around the RNC, on the FNC.
On campus, as Katie McFarland said.
ABC. What? No, we're out of here. Bye, everybody.